I'm Justin Thames, Director of Governmental Affairs for the Florida Institute of CPAs, and this is Impact Report, your update on all things impacting the CPA profession here in Tallahassee. This past Tuesday started the first day of the 2020 legislative session. It was packed full of pomp and circumstance. There were a lot of people in town visiting the Capitol, and we heard from all the leaders of the legislature and the executive branch. You had the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and the Governor himself all gave kind of their vision of what they'd like to get accomplished in the next 60 days. So really what you heard from the Senate President was, a lot of collaboration, a lot of continuing to move things forward as they have last year. Not a whole lot of new initiatives bringing to the table. Talked a lot about working together and kind of keeping the collegiality of the bodies kind of moving forward. On the House side, Speaker Oliva really took some heavy swings at the healthcare profession and the education system. He wants to do a lot of reform in both of those areas, continue to allow for increased teacher pay, but also kind of make sure that you have some accountability for educators. And then on the healthcare side, he wants to expand the scope of practice for nurse practitioners. So there's going to be a little bit of back and forth a little bit more back and forth, I think, between the House and the Senate this year compared to last year. We also see the governor and some of his priorities. He's very focused on continuing to have a low taxes and fiscal responsibility. Made that a key highlight of his speech at the State of the State address. He also talked a lot about water quality and protecting the Everglades. So that'll be another renewed push for funding for that. You'll see that the governor just purchased some more land to protect the Everglades. He also talked a lot about education and increasing teacher pay, which is one of his initiatives that he pushed forward this year. I think he wants to, if I remember correctly, have the base salary somewhere around $47,000 for teachers. So that'll be on the table as well. Between the three, it's going to be a little bit interesting. Last year, they all really worked together to help push a lot of the governor's initiatives. This year, maybe not so. So let's talk a little bit about some of the bills that we've been monitoring. There's not a lot of action this week. There have been a lot of committee meetings, and some of the bills that we've monitored have started to get hearings, but not a lot of major action. So as the governor said in his State of the State, another big push that he's made since he was elected was regulatory reform. If you remember the dereg issues that we talked about last year, we're continuing to monitor those. This week, the Sunset Review bill that we mentioned last week, sponsored by Representative Paul Renner. It'll be heard in committee. It will pass committee and be moving on through the process. It hasn't gotten a hearing in the Senate side yet. Good news that I wanted to share with you all is that we did meet with Representative Renner and talk to him a little bit about the process in his bill. He assured us that in general the CPA profession is not really a target for deregulation altogether. It really is going to give us an opportunity to take a hard look at some of the regulatory structure that we currently have and see if there's going to need to be any kind of tweaks or changes along the way. But that's going to be down the road because the review for the profession won't happen until closer to 2023. Committees for the FICPA that really look at a lot of legislation are going to start to get busy. The bill filing deadline was the first day of session at noon. So we will be sending a lot of bills to our substantive committees for review to make sure that there's not any negative impact to the profession. So we'll be working with our committees over the next probably week to dig deeper into some of the legislation that's been filed so that we can kind of hone in on those pieces of legislation that have a potential impact on the profession. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for your support and for tuning in. If you have any questions about any legislation that you see or have heard of, feel free to email us at govaffairs@ficpa.org. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.